Welcome back to the most unfiltered breakdown in sports entertainment. Last night, a heavyweight clash went down on primetime television, a game that promised fireworks and delivered a nuclear meltdown. Forget the final score, because the biggest story didn't happen during the 60 minutes of action. It happened after the clock hit zero, right in the center of the field, in a moment of visceral, unprofessional, and instantly legendary rage. We are talking about the absolute shocking melee between the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. Specifically, the unbelievable, inexcusable, and yet utterly human explosion of frustration from Lions defensive back Brian Branch, a moment that saw him snub the league's greatest quarterback, bypass the ritual of respect, and then literally launch himself at Chiefs wide receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster, igniting a chaotic post-game brawl that has the entire NFL talking about potential suspensions and massive fines. Branch himself called it a childish thing, but the reason behind it is a simmering tension. A classic NFL beef involving uncalled penalties, bullying, and a block in the back that he says could have seriously injured him. This is not just a story about a punch. This is a deep dive into the psychological warfare of the NFL trenches, the failure of officials, the leadership crisis in Detroit, and the stark contrast between playing between the whistles and playing with pure, unadulterated hostility. Strap in, because we're unpacking the drama, the consequences, and the cold, hard receipts from the biggest fight of the NFL season. A game of chipping and frustration to understand the post-game explosion. You have to understand the pressure cooker that was the game itself. This wasn't a blowout. This was a war of attrition, filled with the kind of back-and-forth chipping that drives players insane. The Lions were coming in hot, riding high, trying to prove they belonged in the elite tier. The Chiefs, the reigning dynasty, were trying to reassert their dominance. Every play was a high-stakes, maximum effort collision, and in the trenches, the subtle, nasty things happen: the late jabs, the extra shove, the trash talk that gets personal. The moments the cameras miss. Throughout the game, we saw subtle signs of Branch's frustration. He's a young player, a fiery competitor, and a rookie who likely felt he was being targeted. Video highlights from earlier in the game show moments of intense verbal exchanges, and even a shoulder bump in the end zone after a Patrick Mahomes touchdown run that some analysts suggested should have been flagged for taunting. The tension was palpable, but it was all within the context of the game. But then came the moment that, according to Branch, shattered the professional veneer: an uncalled illegal block in the back delivered by JuJu Smith-Schuster late in the game. The block in question allegedly occurred late in the fourth quarter, a time when the game was still close enough for hope, but the momentum was undeniably swinging toward the Chiefs. Branch was focused on making a play, doing his job, when suddenly, he says, he was hit illegally from behind by Smith-Schuster. This wasn't a legal crackback. This was allegedly a block in the back of play that every player knows risks serious injury, particularly to the neck and back. When delivered by a man the size of an NFL wide receiver, the sheer frustration for a defensive player comes from the places, the physical danger, and the perceived injustice. Branch saw the hit. He felt the pain. He looked for the yellow flag that signals justice. But the flag never came. In Branch's post-game, raw, and highly emotional locker room interview, he didn't mince words. "I got blocked in the back illegally," he stated. "It was in front of the ref, and the ref didn't do anything," and stuff like that. I could have got hurt off of that play. The perception of being cheated, of having your physical safety disregarded, and then seeing the officials completely ignore. The transgression is a slow burn recipe for a meltdown. Branch felt they were trying to bully me out there. That feeling of being wrong, powerless, and facing potential injury became the powder keg. The game ended, but the fuse had already been lit. The Chiefs took the knee. The clock hit 0 o'clock. Final score, Chiefs 30, Lions 17. The Lions, riding a multi-game winning streak, had just been brought crashing back down to earth by the league's gold standard. And then, the moment that will dominate highlight reels and league disciplinary meetings as players met at midfield for the customary handshake. Patrick Mahomes, the face of the NFL, extended his hand to Branch. Branch, head down, eyes blazing with residual rage, walked right past him, refusing the gesture of sportsmanship. JuJu Smith-Schuster, noticing the snub and the obvious hostility, approached Branch to have words. What exactly was said, we don't know, but the context suggests it was related to the block, the game, and the obvious bad blood. Branch didn't hesitate. He reacted instantly, throwing an open-handed strike at Smith-Schuster's helmet, face mask. The hit sent the veteran wide receiver reeling, falling to the turf instantly. Chaos erupted. Players from both sides, including Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco, rushed into the scrum. Smith-Schuster, jumping back to his feet, went after Branch, who managed to rip the receiver's helmet off. The scene quickly devolved into a chaotic mess of shoving, yelling, and flailing bodies before coaches and officials managed to separate the teams. This was not a shove. This was a direct, targeted attack after the game was over. JuJu Smith-Schuster, who said he was simply expecting a handshake, was left with a reported nasal injury and in total shock. Andy Reid later confirmed the pretty good damage to his receiver's nose. Apologies, inexcusable actions, and looming disciplinary reaction from all parties has been swift and severe. A rare moment of unity in the highly fragmented world of the NFL. Branch, to his credit, quickly admitted his colossal error, saying, "I did a childish thing. I shouldn't have did it. It was childish. I should have showed it between the whistles, not after the game. I apologize for that." But his justification, the bullying and the uncalled penalty, remains his core grievance. He feels provoked, but he knows he crossed the line. Lions head coach Dan Campbell, a man known for his raw intensity and focus on team culture, did not waver. His statement was a decisive repudiation of his players' action. "I love Brian Branch, but what he did is inexcusable, and it's not going to be accepted here. It's not what we do. It's not what we're about. I apologize to Coach Andy Reid and the Chiefs and Smith-Schuster. This public condemnation is crucial. It sends a clear message that the culture of the Lions, built on hard-nosed but respectful play, was violated." Mahomes, ever the composed professional, summed it up perfectly on the broadcast. "We play the game between the whistles. They can do all the extracurricular stuff they want to do, but we play the game in between the whistles." Smith-Schuster echoed the sentiment, emphasizing that his job is to block, and that Branch needs to learn from his mistakes. Now, the focus shifts entirely to the NFL league office. Post-game altercations are taken with the utmost seriousness, as they violate the fundamental integrity of sportsmanship and the safety of the players. Branch's history of prior fines for unsportsmanlike conduct will certainly play a role. The precedent is clear. Players who initiate physical altercations after the game face steep consequences. Former players have been suspended for 2 games for similar post-game fights. The question isn't if Branch will be disciplined, but how severely. He is facing what could be a hefty fine, easily in the tens of thousands, and a multi-game suspension is a very real possibility. The story of the Lions versus Chiefs game will forever be this chaotic 15-second scuffle. It's a tragic footnote for the Lions, who played a hard game but ended it with a shocking lack of discipline. It's a moment that reminds us that underneath the helmets and the huge contracts, these are emotional, highly competitive human beings, capable of both sublime athletic genius and sudden, juvenile explosions of rage when they feel cornered, disrespected, and wronged. The consequences of this childish thing are about to get very, very adult. That's all for this episode. Thank you for joining us for this sensational breakdown. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to catch our emergency update when the NFL drops the hammer on Brian Branch.